So recently I visited Kings Island, a lot of people's favorite amusement park located just north of Cincinnati, Ohio. And let me just start off with saying that this park is great. There's a lot of stuff to do and the atmosphere is great. But today, we're not talking about the atmosphere or the food or any of the stuff like that. Today we are talking about the roller coasters. This park has 14 roller coasters, 10 of which I got to ride. The 4 I didn't get to ride are the Bat, the Great Pumpkin Coaster, Woodstock Express, and Flying Ace Aerial Chase. So pretty much all the kiddie coasters except for the Bat. Anyway, let's jump right into the countdown. Now let me just say that none of the rides here are bad. I just didn't love this ride. It was fairly smooth for a wooden roller coaster, but it wasn't the smoothest in the park, and I just found that it wasn't as thrilling as the rest of the rides at this park. I got to ride in the front and the back of the train, and liked the front better because it had some solid floater airtime while the back had almost none. In fact, it was almost scary because when you hit your lap bar, you would shake because of the roughness, and it kinda hurt, but oddly, I found it fun. I know that I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for putting the racer so low, but I guess I just don't like classic wooden roller coasters as much as most people. This is my favorite Aero Mine Train out of the 2 I've ridden, and by far the most intense. It has some nice theming and is a long ride that all takes place in the woods. The last lift hill is also enclosed and very well themed, but the ride is janky just like many other Aero roller coasters. The ride does keep very good pacing and is very violent around some of its turns. Also, make sure to watch your head because there are some plants that come pretty close to you. In fact, at one point I had to duck so that a branch did not hit me square in the face. It also surprised me with some light floater airtime on a couple of the bumps. This Vekoma inverted boomerang does have some good forces, like my face was
going down.
But you do hit your head a little, and it does not feel like a very long ride, even though it has over 2 minutes and 20 seconds of ride time, 40 seconds of which being prime. It can only run one train because it's a shuttle coaster, so it really doesn't have the fastest line, but it does pack a punch through its 6 inversions, and it is a fun ride. Just be careful not to hit your head on those very annoying head cushions. This Premier Rides family launch coaster does pack in a punch during the launch, forceful helix, and underground section. Though it does feel a little janky during some of its S-bends and the restraints aren't that good, just like pretty much any other Premier Rides roller coaster, I thought it was a fun family coaster and overall a good fit for the park. It just needed some smoothing on some of those S-bends. This Premier Rides looping coaster has an intense launch while in the dark the entire ride. During the middle of the ride, there was a lot of meandering, and it did feel quite uncomfortable because the structure was shaking as the train would pass by, so there would be some jolting around. The mid-course brake run also completely stopped you, but it did have a strong beginning and a strong end. It was a smooth ride, and it does have some forceful inversions, all with just a lap bar. This in-house built wooden roller coaster holds the record for the longest wooden roller coaster in the world, with over 7,000 feet of track, and this ride feels like it lasts forever. And it was running very smooth after the retrack earlier this season, but it did do some meandering all the way until that final helix, which was insane. But this ride had very good pacing. It flew through the entire 7,000 feet of track. There was also some light floater on those 2 hills right after the first drop. Even though this is a good ride, it just does not stack up to the rest of the amazing rides in this park. This long B&M inverted roller coaster has 7 inversions over 4,100 feet of track. And even though it has hyper-like stats, it feels absolutely nothing like a hyper. And although the inversions do not feature the same whip as the earlier B&M inverts, like the Batman the Ride clones for example, it still packs in a punch. Just watch out for those restraints because they will crush your waist. This B&M Hypercoaster features a whole bunch of floater airtime, just like any other B&M Hyper. It has the same staggered seating that you'll see on other Cedar Fair B&M Hypers, making the trains very long. And it does have some pretty good forces in some of the valleys and that little helix into the mid-course brake run. And I found it to be pretty smooth despite people saying it has a rattle. But it did have 2 dud hills right before the little helix into the splashdown, which was kind of disappointing. Although it is a great ride, it still does just not stack up to the next 2 on this list. This large B&M Hyper, no, I'm just kidding, it's a Giga. This B&M Giga Coaster is a fairly short ride, even though it has over 5,000 feet of track, making this a speed machine. and although it does not have a crazy amount of airtime, it did feature some. Also, that final helix did not have any forces at all, despite people saying it has a lot of positive Gs, which made this ride forceless in the positives department. Although the wave turn right after the first drop gave some very good lateral airtime and the speed hill gave some very strong floater. Overall, I thought this was a very good ride and a great fit for the park. Although it was very, very close, I do slightly prefer Mystic Timbers for its insane pacing. This ride feels like the beast, but it actually does something during the ride. And although it does kind of start off as a dud with an okay first drop and an airtimeless first airtime hill, at least in the back, it definitely makes up for that with its incredible pacing and airtime hills. This ride feels like it just gets faster and faster as the ride goes on, and although it's not the longest ride, I didn't hit the brake run thinking, oh my gosh, it was so short. It felt like a nice length ride. The shed was kind of disappointing, but it was definitely a lot better than just a regular brake run. And overall, this ride earns a spot in my top 10 and is an excellent ride and a great fit for this park. So there is my top 10 roller coasters at Kings Island. And I wouldn't say that any of these rides are necessarily bad, but the bottom ones are just okay while the top rides are amazing. This is one of those parks that doesn't have any bad rides, but it doesn't really have any super elite ones either. Overall, this park has a great lineup of coasters, and the only one it's really missing is a dive coaster, and more importantly, an ultra elite roller coaster. I did say Mystic Timbers was amazing, but it's still is in my maybe lower top 5, and it's not just the amazing ride that this park really does deserve. Anyway, those are my favorite rides at Kings Island, and before I go, I would just like to ask you to please like and subscribe to have a thrilling rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.